was good. Did you say meow? Was that meow, meow, meow?
I don't remember.
That was weird.
To the library.
Yeah. We're going to have a jingle for most everything today, and it's all going to be courtesy of the new guy. Who are you?
My name's Hunter, and I work here doing stuff and things.
Yeah. There you go, Hunter. Yeah, welcome, Hunter. Usually I refer to Hunter off screen while he is manning the soundboard and slides and various other things, doing important stuff. And well, obviously, not that important because he's here, so can obviously go without being done, or one person can do it. But you know, whatever. Anyway, Hunter, great to have you, and I'm glad that we're both on screen at the same time because people get us confused often. So now it's just gonna confuse people with us. Yeah. It's weird.
I don't get
We're
it.
just average-looking guys.
Just very average.
Yeah. Did you like that?
Average.
Yeah, show them your socks.
It's just because it matches the shirt.
Show them your socks. It's election week.
Get
Show
your
them
leg
your
up there.
socks.
Get your leg up there.
Whoa, America.
I don't know if you can see that.
Hey.
There you go.
Oh gosh.
Beautiful.
I'm 30 now. I can't do that without stretching.
Bad idea.
Okay.
Remember, stretch.
Anyway, welcome. So glad that you're joining us at this fine 11 o'clock hour on this November 1st of 2020. Welcome November.
Big week.
Hey,
Big week.
We survived October.
Barely.
Yes.
Yeah, barely, but yeah, we're here. Thank goodness. It was a close call.
It was a close call. Okay, so we got a question for you. Okay, if you were given
Big question.
an extra hour for 1 week, what would you do with it? And so the creator of this question, I believe, is Justin. And so I can actually ask him. I've been assuming a lot of things in this question because we were given an extra hour for this 1 week. So is this an extra hour every day for a week?
Every day for a week.
Great, that's what we were going with. Fantastic. And just for the sake of conversation, we're making it at like 2 in the afternoon is when you get your extra hour, not in the middle of the night because then you would just sleep. That's pointless. So, Hunter, what would you do with your extra hour?
See, that's the good question because I think I would still use it to sleep because I keep thinking about I'm in the middle of the day, I'm working, I don't want to be here. Let me just conk out. Not here. Not All right, I shouldn't have said that in front of my boss. I shouldn't have said that in front of my boss.
Hunter, yeah, your boss is in here, dude.
All right,
but he's laughing, so
yeah, hopefully,
because he enjoys firing people. I think is why he's laughing.
He won't be laughing tomorrow when we meet together.
He just did your evaluation last week.
Most people would think that way. I wasn't necessarily.
Oh yeah. I have a friend who, typically.
Yeah, they hate their job. I love my job. I really need
my
this
friend's
job.
an idiot.
Please don't fire me.
You would work the extra hour because you need to get paid.
That's right. I work hourly.
You're hourly, so yes, you need to work that extra hour.
If I could golf, I would golf. I can't golf because my hand. Yeah, guys, I'm impaired.
I would clearly spend my extra hour with Nora. So there you go. There you go. There you go. On the golf course with Nora. Let's be realistic.
There you go.
Let's be realistic.
Push cart.
Teaching her how to. Oh, I'm gonna figure out a way to get like the bag on her stroller. Like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna figure it out.
Have you seen those strollers that look like a skateboard?
A stroller?
Yeah,
I've seen the golf carts that look like that.
It's like a scooter kind of thing.
Oh, I'm in.
And then in the next picture, someone's doing a kickflip on it, which is not good because the baby's inside of the stroller.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a very bad idea.
So we're going to not do that.
This is so wheels off.
Because I love my child.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
Goodbye. Good seeing you. Hope you find your dad. All right, Christmas spirit, man. We got to watch Elf.
Yeah, we do.
We need to talk through best Christmas movies here in the coming weeks.
Ooh, yeah. I know on that.
It is. Man, are you a decorate for Christmas like November 1st type person, or is it before that? Is it after that?
No, it's
after
usually,
Thanksgiving.
It's the day after Thanksgiving usually.
Day after Thanksgiving,
because you got to celebrate Thanksgiving.
We were driving around the neighborhood last night, and there were about a half a dozen houses with Christmas lights up already, and it was just like November 1st, or I guess it was still October, but really November 1st, we're Christmas lighting it up, and let's go.
Yeah,
that's not.
That's thing.
Well, I don't decorate for Christmas regardless, but
just
this year we will. Yeah. Thanksgiving just gets overlooked. Anyway, okay. Hey, if you're online,
if you're still watching,
tell us good morning. If you are in the family room right now, greetings. I'm so glad you're here. And we have some fun facts for you because it is election week.
Yes. Big week.
Yeah,
Huge.
big week, election week. So we have some fun facts because the words fun and election have not been used together in a very long time. So we're going to make some fun election facts.
Fun facts. We're doing fun facts.
We got a jingle, man. Yeah, he changed it up. I love it. Yeah, we're going to have jingles for things, and that's why really the only reason Hunter's here. All right, fun fact number one.
Number one.
Weather and harvest dictated election timing. Yeah, back in the day, history. You know, Justin came up with all these because he's a history buff, was a history teacher at one point, a teacher of all things history. So he says in the 1800s, the agrarian economy. What's agrarian?
I went to the agrarian the other week and saw the fishes. It was pretty fun.
Aquarium.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Aquarium. An agrarian aquarium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now
So you're farming fishes. That's
totally
what it means.
get it now.
Agrarian aquarium. Man, that's tough. What was the other one that was tough to say? Together.
The fears thing?
No. Anyway,
I don't know.
okay.
We're off base.
So the agrarian economy back in the 1800s involved most Americans. In 1840, farming was the occupation of 70% of working Americans.
Wow.
That's
huge.
impressive. And the working age at that time was like 8. So that's a lot. Farmers
why they
weren't
had
able to
kids.
travel easily until the harvest was over. Also, the onset of winter conditions in areas not here because
don't
winter
have
conditions, that doesn't happen, made travel a problem. Here, travel's a problem in the winter if it's like a threat of ice.
If it's been raining and it's 40 degrees
40 degrees and
outside.
raining. School's out. Nope, can't do this. Buses can't get
Shut
around.
down the
We're out.
city.
Okay, fun fact number 2. Number
2.
America's non-elected president. All right, does anybody know? Fun fact.
I do. He
America's only non-elected president. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The only president and vice president not elected to the office was, you ready for it? Do you know? Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford.
Try to say it.
Heck of a car you made there, Gerald.
Gerald.
Using the 25th Amendment, President Richard Nixon appointed Ford as vice president after Agnew resigned from the position. 9 months later, President Nixon resigned and Gerald Ford rose up to his place.
He was a crook.
Yeah, he was a what?
Crook?
Oh,
Did he say?
yeah.
He wasn't a crook. but
Yeah,
he
fun fact number 3. This one has no context to it other than the president was chosen days prior to the inauguration in 1877.
does that
Why is that? I don't know, and I haven't looked it up, and Justin gave me no further details. So maybe, if you're curious about that one,
Look it up.
ask Justin.
And then put it on Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah, fun fact number 4. I apologize for the language here. It's Justin's fault. Idiots can't vote in Ohio.
Nope.
Not allowed.
Nope.
Not allowed. Yeah.
not legal.
There is a clause in Ohio that prohibits idiots from voting. It says, no idiot or insane person shall be entitled to the privileges of an elector.
There we go. I just wonder how you judge that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so. I don't know.
Yeah, I recently joined like a Ransbottom genealogy Facebook page. I was invited to it. And most of my relatives that I don't know, or just Facebook acquaintances, live in Ohio. So, and they all, I have no idea. I don't know. Can they vote?
Hopefully they can
Can they
vote.
not? I hope they can vote.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the standard of this? Ohio? Figure it out.
That guy's dumb. He
Figure
should
it out.
vote.
Okay, fun fact number 5. Ready? Number 5. Voting is mandatory in Australia.
They don't have to worry about freedom in there.
Down below, Australians over 18 are required by law to register to vote and participate in elections. Yeah, whoever doesn't show up on election day is fined 20 Australian doll hairs.
Doll hairs.
Yeah, how much is that in American doll hairs? 15. So they're $15. Is it worth $15 to not vote?
A lot of people would say yes.
A lot of people would say, yeah.
People are lazy.
Yeah, especially, in Australia, I guess. I know nothing about Australian politics.
I'd be scared to go outside in Australia. Have you seen some of the animals out there?
Yeah, I'm out.
Not good.
I'm out on that.
Yep.
So,
Spiders.
fun facts for election day. You're welcome. If you have any better ones, you
was
can just let us know.
That was fun. Like we
yeah.
said it was going to be.
Yeah, that was fun. Well, they were fun and they were
I had
facts.
fun.
Yeah, whose facts? Justin's.
Yep.
So you can fact check Justin.
Please do.
Okay. Special announcement, very quickly. Not this Sunday. Today's the 1st. Next Sunday would be the 8th.
Yes.
The following Sunday is November the 15th. Very good. November 15th, 6:30, we're having a night of worship. You must register for the night of worship, okay? It doesn't take long. You can go to the church website right now and do that. QR codes, Church Center app, all that. You could do it right now and have it done before service even starts. It is very fast, very easy, but you need to do it ASAP because we have limited seating in the family room for our night of worship. So register online today. Hey guys, we're so excited that you're here with us this morning. Thanks for joining us for the lobby, and we're excited to continue through our study in Romans. So we'll turn it over to you in the family room as we start our worship time.
You know, we often think about church, and everyone has this idea what that is like. And often we'll think in terms of building or something that we've experienced personally. And it's real easy to get myopic on that and always look at that through our own context. And last week, if you were here, I talked to you about how the experience we have, we call church, of being together and walking together. It's probably a minority experience when you look at the whole world. And we often don't realize that. And so I asked you last week to try and get out of that and assume for just a minute that your experience, the American church, wasn't necessarily the majority of what a church family looked like. So I wanted to show you a couple of pictures because all around the world, church often looks like this. You've got somebody gathering in a small room, a living room somewhere. Everyone's seated on the floor. It's very, very basic. It's very, very different. The sandals are left at the doorway. They're just gathering and they're desperate for the fellowship. Or it looks like this, where you have a group of people who are gathered in a living room. They're praying desperately for courage. They're praying for sustenance, for God to see them through. Right after the service last week, we talked a little bit about this, and someone stopped by and said, you know, I remember talking to someone who was pastoring in a place in the world where it's dangerous. And he said, yeah, I want you to meet my replacement pastor. And I said, replacement, are you leaving? He says, no, but it's always a matter of days or weeks until we're either arrested or martyred. And pastors in our country pray that God will enable us to die well. And I don't know about you, that is absolutely morbid and it's soul-shaking, but it's true. In places like Asia and in some of the countries of Africa and throughout the Middle East, to worship God together, to come together for fellowship and support and to experience God together is a dangerous thing, and they pray for courage and for sustenance because they know they're at risk. And I tell you that today because I think we think through our own filter and we don't realize some of the things that Paul talks about to us because we're not from that context. And it's so foreign to us, both in time and in culture, that we don't grasp what he's saying. So today I want you to put yourself in those shoes. I want you to imagine today that like those different countries, those different contexts, you believe that at any time you could be arrested or you could be taken from your home because you're a follower of Jesus. And if you knew that was true, if you believed that, what would you see as most important for you to do with your time? What would be most important for you? It's not an empty question because around the world, millions of believers literally live like that. I could have taken those two pictures you've seen. They live like that. And Paul says something to us that has incredible gravity, but it'll have even more gravity if you realize time is short. And so I want you to read Romans 13 with me, and I want you to imagine yourself in his reality 2,000 years ago, in that culture, in that time, because that time, that kind of approach to life is still prevalent around the world. It's not prevalent here. And I want you to hear, with that in mind, what Paul has to say to the Romans. This is Romans 13. I'm going to read it with you. Verse 8 says, "Owe nothing to anyone except for your obligation to love one another. If you love your neighbor, you'll fulfill the requirements of God's law. For the commandments say, you must not commit adultery, you must not murder, you must not steal, you must not covet. These and other such commandments are summed up in this one commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to others, so love fulfills the requirements of the law." Now stop for a second. If you ever listen to KLTY, you probably heard this song that's been on the air quite a bit by Danny Gokey called "Love God, Love People." And he says it all comes down to this. And it's really summarizing something Jesus said many years ago. They came to him and said, "Hey, what's the greatest commandment? I mean, you've got all these different commandments on the table. Which one matters most?" And he said, "You already know the answer. The answer to that is that you love God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. But there's a second that's like it." And that caught him off guard. He was actually quoting Leviticus when he said, "And love your neighbor as yourself." And then he said something that blew them away. On these two commands, love God, love neighbor. Love God, love people. On these two commandments, all the rest of it hangs. Every bit of it. That's why Paul says, when you're doing this, if you're loving your neighbor, if you're doing that, you are summing up all the law. He says this way, he says, love does no wrong to others, so love fulfills the requirements of God's law. It fulfills it. So I'm going to ask you this question, because this is the one that's kind of rolling around. How do we love our neighbor and why? We are surrounded by people who are like us and different from us, and yet every time Jesus started couching things in the terms of neighbor, it was surprising. It wasn't just people we like, it wasn't just people that were like us. There was this overwhelming, overarching expression of loving other people. And he tells us a couple of things in this passage I want you to see. Number one, he tells us that love is an unpaid debt. It's an unpaid obligation. He says, don't owe anyone except the obligation to love your neighbor. Now, if you are a believer, it means you have responded to Jesus' call to trust him with your life. When you got that gift of grace to cover all your sin, past, present, and future, when that happened, you gladly welcomed the chance to live and love like Jesus. That's why we say that a lot. To live and love like Jesus. And if you're going to live and love like Jesus, that means you're going to love people who may not be that lovable. You're going to love people whether you feel like it or not. And it's not going to be feeling, it's going to be a choice of action to serve and live lovingly toward other people. It is the basic debt we have. But it's not a debt we resent, it's a debt we embrace. I'll give you an example of that. This morning, I did something that I have done over 6,000 times. I walked from the far wall on one end of my house to the far wall on the other end of the house in the dark. I know that house so well. I know so many steps. I don't have to count them anymore. It's just natural. It's become muscle memory. I come to the kitchen. I grab the coffee in the dark. I know where my favorite mugs are. I pull them down. I pour. I know the sound of a full cup. Yeah, it's bad. And I make my way through. I know I turn this way, I go that way, I reach out with one hand, touch a wall, and I know where I am. And I walk into the darkness, close the door, and turn on the light so I don't wake up anybody else. I've done that 6,000 times in my house, easily. But it's because we designed the house. Now, that works out really, really well, except when my kids are home and they've pushed furniture around different places, or Kelly's decided to reorganize things, and in the middle of the night or in the middle of the morning when I'm up, walking through by memory in the dark, I hit something. I don't want my wife to know how many times I've had to wipe coffee off the walls and floors in my house. I know it because 17 years ago, we sat in our living room with a stack of plans this thick, and one after the other, Kelly went through. Our kids were going to be teenagers, so we were ready for the split bedroom plan. We wanted our kids on one end of the house and us on the other. She wanted an open space because we were still hosting newcomer fellowship in our home at that time. We were having anywhere from 25 to 45 people in our living room. So we didn't have any room for furniture. We just needed open space. We kept 25 of those plastic folding chairs up in the attic. And every Sunday we hosted, we'd pull them down and set it up. It was nuts, but it was because we designed our house for that, and we loved that. Sitting on the back porch yesterday, breeze blowing through. Our kids were out there and said, you know, this time of year, I love this look. I love sitting here. It's my safest place. It's my refuge. It's my retreat. It's the place where I feel safest and most loved, most comfortable, and most at home. And every month, I cut a payment to a mortgage company. And I gladly do it because now after 17 years, what I pay for a mortgage is less than I could rent an apartment in town. And every time I do, I'm going, sure, I'm glad this happened 17 years ago. And all of you who have moved here in the last 5 years, I have 2 words for you. I'm sorry. We got here early, and so it was a better deal. And it's a bigger challenge to move here now. But we embrace that. And there's one reason, because the benefit so outweighs the cost. Paul says, you don't owe anyone but the debt of love. You love your neighbor because Christ loved us so greatly. We didn't become containers of his grace. We became conduits. And so we love other people with that grace around us. It's a debt we embrace. Second thing he tells us is love is fulfillment of God's design for us. He made you with the capacity to love. And he called you to that love. And you think about it just for a second. What settles quarrels and disagreements? Really and well? Love does. What fights against our envy and our jealousy? Love does. What leaves 2 people in conflict with the ability to walk away instead of one wounded and bleeding, the other the fat cat on the block? What allows them to leave and both of them be whole? Love. Love disembowels our selfishness. Love makes it possible to recognize our own flaws and failures. It's love that cuts the tension. It's love that means you don't commit adultery or murder or steal or envy or any of those other things. I started thinking about this. I don't commit adultery not because I'm afraid of getting caught, but because I love my wife. It's a function of loving my wife that I choose also a faithful life. It's not this burden, it's the choice. It goes with it. And it was what we were designed to do. We were designed to love. And so you can see it when you see somebody who is willing to give, someone who's willing to sacrifice or serve or make a simple apology. You see it at work. But it was what we were designed to do. And third thing he tells us is that love protects us and protects others from our harm. Our love is an expression of God's love for our neighbors. I learned a long time ago that without love, we express our own selfishness. And every time we do, it means that others pay. Last week we talked about how we all have that propensity for original sin. We want to be God. And what we do is we operate thinking, if I had my way, that's what's best for us. But God had a different design. He wanted what was best for all. And when we choose to act in loving ways toward our neighbor, people who are like us, people who are different from us, when we choose to do that, we're actually protecting other people from the consequence of our selfishness. Love is the antigen for that whole sin. Now, probably none of that surprises you. I'm looking around the room. I know some of you have said very clearly to me you understand that we're supposed to love our neighbor. But why is it such a big deal? Paul's answered the what in some ways, but why? And he's going to tell us that there is an urgency about that, there is an importance about that we typically go right past and we never consider. And he tells us in verse 11. Listen to this. This is all the more urgent. Okay, why is it urgent? It's all the more urgent for you know how late it is. Time is running out. Wake up, for our salvation is nearer now than when we first believed. The night is almost gone. The day of salvation will soon be here. He's saying every single day of history we are marching toward its end. There's a finite capacity, that there is a beginning and an end, that Jesus said when he went to the cross, when he defeated death in the empty tomb, and when he resurrected, that was always headed to a destination. And he promised the disciples, and vicariously he promises us, I'm coming back. I'm coming for you. There's an end. He says the time is near. It's drawing near. We're closer now than we've ever been before. Now, it is 2020, so in rough terms, a little less than 2,000 years ago, followers of Jesus considered themselves to be in the last days. The last days. I assure you they thought that during the plagues of Europe. They thought these are the last days. I mean, people are dying everywhere. I know they thought that in the 30s and 40s when Hitler was marching across Europe. I've heard people who survived those days who said, we thought this was the end of the world. Some of you have family who marched through those wars, who had to walk into contexts in Vietnam that they found hellacious and so horrific they would not ever talk about them again. And I know for a fact, on the morning of 9/11, there were people all around me who were saying, this is the end. But I'll also offer to you that I'm with people when they hear diagnoses and they hear news they don't want to hear, and they start praying, Jesus, come. When the police cruiser pulls up in front of your house at 1 a.m. to tell you about your children, come, Jesus, now. When you're in the examining room and the doctor says the word terminal, you pray, Jesus, come. When your addiction is so thick, you know you cannot operate. You can't function, and you've lost everything. You pray, Jesus, come now. And when you lose someone you love, suddenly, someday you want right now. Jesus said it's coming. And Paul says, look, you love well because the day is nearer than ever before. It's time. And I will tell you that many times the last few months, as we've watched things waffle back and forth, as we've seen anger and vitriol and injustice and rage and all kinds of things happening, I can tell you that in the last many months, I've heard people ask, Bruce, are these the last days? Yep. And they have been for a long time. You know, I had an experience when I was in high school. I had a pastor who said he did know the time. Jesus said no one would know the time. It will come on you with great shock and surprise. But he claimed he knew. In fact, he gave us a date. And when that date came, they still did not march him out for his ministerial malpractice. If I ever say, hey, I know the time, then I will be calling Jesus a liar, and that's the day you need to take me out and give me a whooping on the parking lot. You won't know. But it's certain. That's why Paul says the day is short. It's that much important. That's why it's urgent. So what do? Verse 12, he says, so remove your dark deeds like dirty clothes and put on the shining armor of right living. And he goes into the detail of what that looks like. You know, stop doing this, stop doing this, stop that. Then he says this, Instead, clothe yourselves with the presence of the Lord Jesus Christ, and don't let yourself think about ways to indulge your evil desires. So here's the deal. You live and love like Jesus with an eye on the horizon, knowing he is coming back, anticipating he's coming back. And that means every day life is, in many ways, urgent. And your love for your neighbor is absolutely critical, because your words telling them of the hope you hold in your heart will carry very little weight if it's not backed up with a life that reflects it. I know, because I have spent my whole career hearing people bruised and battered and disillusioned because someone's mouth said one thing but their life said another. Even this week, I was asked the appropriate question. Bruce, why does it seem that there are so many churches full of people who are fakes? And I told that person something I'll tell you right now. Because 2,000 years ago, Jesus said something we don't want to believe. That the way is narrow, and there are few who find it. And it's not because he wants to exclude people. It's because it requires you put your trust in him and only in him. And you're not God anymore. And that means he gets to call the shots. And most will say, I can believe facts. That's fine. We don't want to believe so much that we put our lives in his hands and say, Jesus, you're in charge. I am not. We don't like that. It's unnatural. It's difficult, but it is essential. Jesus will not be the Savior without being your Lord. Amen? He won't. Paul says, you live and love like Jesus. Because it's what you were designed for. It is the debt of love you have. It is what will protect everyone around you from harm. You live, you clothe yourselves with his presence. You honor him by what you do, because time is short. And when he comes back, it is a two-edged sword. There is a great relief for those of us who belong to him, and it will be a great distress and tragedy for every person who said no to him. We had a man in our church that last few weeks who had a heart transplant. And so he was waiting for that. And when it finally came, he said, I'm torn because I get to live. But my living means also somebody else died. And so when Jesus comes back, there is a two-sided part of that. There is a relief because we have been trusting God we cannot see. And finally we will see him, and he comes to bring relief for all the pain and the sadness and the loss and the tragedy and the grief and our sin. But he also brings with him a time when the opportunity to respond to him has come to a close. And Peter says it very well. He does not wish that any would perish, but all would come to eternal life. But many say no. The last upgrade that came on Windows offers you a whole new series of wallpaper that shows up, when your computer boots up. And I love it because up in the right-hand corner, it tells you what you're seeing and where it is. And you can say, I like it, and you'll keep getting things like that. And so my computer is flooded with beach, coastlines, mountains, fishing lakes, those kinds of things, those holy things. And so you can click like, and I always go up and say, where is it? So I saw a few weeks ago, I saw this beautiful beach, and I went up to click, where is it, to see what the background is. It says Thailand. And I can't go to places like that in my mind without revisiting a day that changed history. It was Christmas here. I know because it was Christmas morning. I was going in at the old building to lead the services on that Christmas day. And I didn't do this often, but I just checked the news before I came in. In Thailand, thousands of tourists from Asia and from Europe had come there. It's a hot spot. Indonesia, Thailand, all around that area. They come there often in the winter to get away from the cold, and they were lining the beaches. Children were playing at the surf's edge, building sandcastles, and older boys were testing their mettle against the harder waves that were farther out. But everywhere you saw people sunning and enjoying and relaxing on that pristine sand. The beach was narrow, and suddenly it began to grow. The sand began to extend out toward the ocean, and in that moment there were a few people who saw that and looked up and saw a thicker line at the horizon, and they began to run for the cliffs that overlooked that resort in Thailand. And they began to call out to everyone else, "Run!" And most people were confused by that. Why would you say that? And so you saw a few people sit up and look around and wonder, but they were on vacation. I'm not running on my vacation, but those few were making their ways to the cliffs and going to the stairways to try to get to upper floors, calling out, "Run!" Because when the surf had gone out, it was a precursor and the sign of the times that something else was coming. But few did run. Far too few. And 200,000 people died in the next hour, all around the Indian Ocean rim. The sign was there, but too few watched it, read it, and responded to it. You've probably seen pictures of that day, and most of them are photoshopped because you see these buildings and you have this massive wave towering over, and it's obvious that's not how it works. The surf retreats, you see the exposure of the sand, and slowly you see a wave coming in, but it doesn't look like this monster. It looks like a foamy white line. And it gets closer, and you realize it's bigger than you thought, and it crashes. I've spent a lot of time at the beach, and you think in terms of the sound of the surf, the crash and the recession. The crash and the recession. I love that. It's music to my ears. But when you have a tsunami, it comes in, and it's not necessarily that big at first, but it just keeps on coming and keeps on coming. And the longer it goes, the deeper it goes, the more powerful it becomes, and the more it destroys in its wake. And it keeps pressing. 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, deeper, stronger, wider, 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles, and it's still going. That's the problem. Months later, I stood on a beach. There was a single steel and concrete column that survived, and there was a tree about 40 feet high that was bare. In fact, you could look around the horizon, and every mountain was forested until you got to a line, and everything below that was empty. And we met a woman who had survived, and she said, the top 12 or so on the tree that kept climbing and were there first and got to the very top, they survived, and everyone below that line were swept away. The signs were there. It was urgent. But too few sought safety. And Paul calls on us to love our neighbor because they don't recognize the signs. And God loves them just as much as he loves you. And he calls on us to live and love in such a way people see it, that God's grace flows because you're a conduit, not a container for his grace. He says, you love well, you love your neighbor as yourself. All these commandments are about the same thing. You want to love them because God loves them and loved you. And if you will, and you'll live that way so it has credibility, authenticity. They can hear the warning. They can hear the invitation. And while the storm is still far away, they can know that love. They can express it. They can experience it. They can experience a God that's good, even when times are bad. All the more because the days are short. Now that's what he calls us to do. The question is, what will you do? Will you choose to say, I really don't care. I'm okay. If you have that feeling, if you feel, I really don't care. I'm okay. I'm going to warn you, you probably have not experienced the love of Christ. Because just like that wave does not leave things as they once were, Christ's grace doesn't leave you as you were. It changes your heart. It changes your motives. It changes your operation. It changes your assumption. And it certainly changes how you love. What will you do? There's some of you who know the facts. You've heard the facts. We have plenty of information. What we lack is transformation. If you know the facts about what Jesus did and yet you don't respond to them, it is as if you never heard them at all. And I bet there's some of you here, some of you are watching online, you know the information, but you have never said, I'm going to make a decision with my life because I'm going to put my trust in the one who loved me like that. There won't be another. There won't be anybody else. Many of you I know have already trusted Christ. You know that you made a decision, but you've been hurt, you've been disillusioned, you've been struggling. Would you today say, God, you're worth it? And I may see all kinds of things that disappoint me in people, but I do not find them in you. Will you trust him like you've never trusted him? And will you, because of that, let him flow through you with his grace? To love people you don't even like? To seek peace where it's broken? That's what he wants. The question is, what will you do? So I'll invite you to pray with me. I want to spend a few minutes praying. I want you to assess your heart right there, right at home, right here in the room. I want you to assess your heart for just a few minutes. Have you experienced a washing of your past, a relief from your mistakes, your sin, because Jesus offered it and you asked for it? If you have, will you choose today to love like you've never loved because the days are short? That's what you were designed to do. And if you haven't, sit there going, I've had my fill of church, or I've had my fill of religious duty or activity, but I've never been overwhelmed by his love. I'd like that fresh start. I want to feel the relief. He's been waiting. And he is ready. Would you call out to him, Jesus, I need desperately what you did on the cross for me. And I want to know the joy of that salvation. I want to know the relief of it. So I ask you today, wash my record clean. Today I come to you empty-handed, and I'm ready to trust you. Will you wash over me with your grace? Would you say that to him? Father, hear the hurts and the hearts of your people as they call out to you today. Whether they have followed you for a long time or at this moment they finally decided, they finally got it, and they want the hope and the confidence of your love. Right now, Father, we declare there is no other name. There's no one else we can depend on for eternity. And we know you saved us and you made us to be lovers of other people. That you designed us to serve and to sacrifice and to give in a debt we gladly embraced because you gladly embraced our debt of sin. God, we invite you to come into this moment. We beg you to make your presence so certain we can't deny it. So that as we look forward to the days ahead, whatever they are like, we look forward with confidence, real, living hope. For there is no other name but yours. And no one else has ever loved us like you. So hear our hearts cry of praise and thanks and wonder.
Thanks for being a part of our online services today. We hope it was helpful in showing you how you can live and love like Jesus. If you have any questions or need any information, you can find all the information you need at fbcmidlow.com. If you want to contact us, send us a text at 972-845-5796. We'll be right back here at the same time next week. We'll see you then.